I'm currently in a country that is at the crossroads of the Mediterranean. South of Italy and Sicily, north of Tunisia, west of Greece, and east of Spain. And it is a small place that has a lot of history. So welcome to Mdina Malta. Hey folks, Brian Singh here from Brian's Table, and today we're going to do a walking tour of Medina. This is the former capital of Malta before it was moved to Valletta, and it is quite an interesting site. So I'm just going to show you the map of where we're going to go, and then we're just going to go do a nice little stroll throughout the entire town site. Obviously it's a working World Heritage Site here with lots of restaurants, bars, and hotels, but at the same point, it was the old citadel that also functioned as the capital. And these are all of the key sites here, historic buildings of Medina. This is one of the more popular sites here in the country, and it is a fairly well-maintained historic site. Coming in here, this is the entrance to the walled city, and you could appreciate the fortifications and basically what would constitute something akin to the good old-fashioned moat, but more likely were traditionally gardens that served as a buffer between you and the city. If you're a fan of Game of Thrones, stay tuned. You'll get a sense on why they use Malta as one of their filming locations. As you come through the main gate there, the first thing on your right is the Museum of Natural History. And straight ahead, there is a working monastery there, which has experienced the cloistered way of the life of Benedictine nuns. I don't think I've ever encountered Benedictine nuns before, so I'm quite curious to know what alcohol they have brewing there. It's a little chaotic here with all the tourists. I'm going to go through this particular site clockwise. So let's take a look at what's around me here. This is the Corte Capitanale, and you also have Herald's Loggia. So this is where the Medina Local Council meets. Pretty snazzy hotel there. You just get a sense of everything is walled in, and you have to go indoors, and there are beautiful courtyards in between. Just to give you a sense on the age of this place, right up there. 1530 AD. Quite something. We did a walking tour yesterday in Valletta, and it was recommended that we did come to Medina. One thing I want to make clear is the pronunciation of the place is Mdina and not Medina. Medina is the holy city in Saudi Arabia, which is in conjunction with Mecca, two of the holiest cities in Islam. I think the most incredible thing about this is how fortified the city is from the outside and even within. So even if you are able to break through the walls of the city and breach, there is another set of defenses that you have to get through. The windows will all have this additional fortification with the bars. And as it is a working site, there are a few cars on here. And as it's Sunday, you can go in and watch Mass, but there's no tours. But in the overall history of Malta, this is fairly recent given how much Malta was part of a lot of Roman history, the Phoenicians, and even in with trade with Carthage, which was on the north of Tunisia, which would be another video of mine. But the jewel in the crown here is definitely St. Paul's Cathedral here. That is quite the magnificent structure. Casa Corono, a nobleman's home. I've often wondered, what does it take to be a nobleman in this day and age, and are they still relevant? Apparently, I could do a quick jaunt into the church. Let's see what's in there. Well, that was super interesting. Of course, I always take my hat off every time I go into places of worship. Atheist as I am, respect is always the order of the day. Let's saunter on. More of the historic buildings here, Church of St. Roch, or Rock, Palazzo Falzon. Again, as you can see here, the times, they're going back to 1592, 1594. But most of it was happening in the 1600s and the early part of the 1700s. And to give you a sense on the age here, the first time this was mentioned was in 1436. So relative to where I started off at the beginning here, I am now here. It really does give you a sense as to the compactness of the site. And we have St. Dorothy's Convent here. Maybe they have a few friends of Dorothy here. Who knows? More of these delightful walkways that traverse between the buildings. Restricted entry over there. It's quite something that they fit in a lot of these walkways that connected buildings over 400 years ago. It's quite something. Restaurant called Fontanella. That's where we had lunch. They're quite famous for their cakes and ice creams and general treats. Let's go along the fortified wall and let's take a look at the view. That's quite something. You can see the Mediterranean out that way, right over there. And Gozo Island, it is back that way. And Valletta, the capital, is back that way. I do think one of the things when you are here on this wall, you do get a sense of what it was like to be one of the guards here looking out for invading warriors who are trying to take over the island. Maltese were quite proud of their heritage, where they fended off the Ottomans. They were never taken over by the Ottomans, quite something, and but also very proud of their Christian heritage here. For fans of Game of Thrones, you do get a sense of what it must have been like to avoid trying to restrain an invading army with whatever resources you have along the wall of a fortified city as your first line of defense outside before they tried to breach your capital. As I mentioned before, Malta is at the crossroads of the Mediterranean. And it was very interesting being served at Fontanella down there, because all of the staff were largely from the Indian subcontinent, including Sri Lanka, and maybe a couple Filipino staff. So in terms of thinking about invading armies and how mixed Maltese people are, it just adds another dimension that when you are dealing with the aging population here in Europe, that through migration now, this is how I don't want to use the term invasion, but this is what is required now to have a functioning economy. And most of the staff in Medina and also throughout the island and even on Gozo are largely from the Indian subcontinent and also the Philippines, but a few other additions along the way. We've encountered Bulgarian drivers, we had a Serbian guide, so you get a sense that people do come here to make a better life. So instead of just the old school, we're going to invade the island, through legitimate means and through economic migration, you're starting to see how things change. So it's, as an interesting context, what they were doing in the past to defend their population and their wealth, now that they have to maintain that, they do have to, it does require people from other cultures to be here to help support the economy. The main street is that way, but we're just going to continue on off to in a clockwise manner. Another one of the restaurants here in this town site. Just to give you a sense on how warm the island can get. That's bougainvillea, or bougainvillea. I grew up with that plant in Trinidad. We had it on our wall, so we're here at about high 30s in latitude, whereas Trinidad was 10 degrees north. There's a Knights of Malta, and they also have another one about Medina. But we have a little cafe here with artisanal bites and a pristine TR3 Triumph. Pretty gorgeous. And a little cafe here. And of course, they have pastéis here. One thing I must confess is I have an unhealthy love of the British sports cars of the late 60s and 70s. Triumph being one of my favorite brands of cars, and I would say that my dream car would always be a MGB GT V8. But they're no longer practical and they're very expensive to maintain, so I'm not going to have one of those. Another little garden alcove here next to the cafe. As in Valletta, there's another one of these 5D movies that give you a sense on what the history of Malta was. You know, again, I don't, it's not something to make fun of. You know, people want to have an entertaining way to learn about history, and if you got kids around, it's an easy way to keep them entertained and engaged, and you know, they pick up on the history of a place in creative ways, and that's what those movies are for. There you go. The Medina experience and the Knights of Malta. More details on the Palazzo Santo Sophia, the Church of St. Peter in chains, and the magazine curtain. The cool thing about it is it's a very clean and well-organized place. I've been to old cities before and they're quite run down, but Malta being one of the most bombed places during World War II, you know, it must have been very harsh for them here. And they, being very proud people of, and always having to deal with some form of aggression towards them, they are very proud to try to maintain their heritage throughout all of this. And this is a great testament as to what that is. Game of Thrones fans, does it feel familiar? So we have the Church of St. Nicholas, Greek's Gate, and the Church of the Visitation of Our Lady. Where we started over here, we've now made it all around to over here. Let's complete the loop and then let me show you the main drag. If you've seen some of my previous videos, I did one on Galle Fort in Sri Lanka. Very reminiscent of this. That was built by the Dutch, and you can get a sense on all these elements of fortification, and also this is a working site where people live here. So there's quite a few signs on not to make too much noise and to respect the resident population. Bacchus, the root of the term bacchanalian. Woo. Looks like a kind of cool place there. What's pretty cool is that they have a lot of these designs on the doors, and these are the old school door knockers. Quite something. And this is the main drag here. Quite a local favorite, prickly pear juice. Oddly enough, I can leave the province, but the province seems to keep finding me wherever I go. Hey Alberta, those great balconies, quite something. So I'm now backtracking on this main drag here. Over there is another great view of the cathedral. There's a couple more things I want to show you guys here. As much as the movie was famous in the 1940s, that was the only reference I've seen so far in Malta so far. Square here. Site of the medieval synagogue. See? The island even had a Jewish population. And the Palazzo Falzon, again, one of the wealthy families here, and the hall to accommodate one of the Grand Masters, and the Carmelite Church and Priory. So I'm going back towards number 1 here. So we're just going to go along the main drag here, hang a left, and we should be winding our way out. But there's always one more stop. Let's go and check it out. We're told that Malta is a place of many churches, and there's supposedly 365 churches in the country. So there's one for every day of the year. This has been a very interesting town site, a little bit of world history from the center of the Mediterranean, where with a country that has seen so much of the history of the Europe, North Africa, the Romans, the Ottomans, the Phoenicians, were part of the Punic Wars. It's been quite a opportunity to witness what a site like this was that evolved as a result of the thousands of years of history that preceded it, as this place was set up as the capital of Malta that eventually moved down to Valletta. And it's amazing how beautiful it is and how enchanting it is to experience a place built with local materials and to experience what the aspects of security were like of that era, and how much of a reaction to how many times they've had to defend themselves from intruders, and what this represents in terms of the history of the country. Let's head on out. Okay folks, I hope you enjoyed my walking tour of Medina. It's been delightful to visit quite a site like this. Again, I do love being here in Southern Europe and exploring this area so rich in history and culture that has influenced so many other parts of the world. And it is quite something to visit a former capital here that was a heavily fortified town that was very much a reflection of the history of Malta and what was required to defend this place, and also to govern a place that is readily invaded by many populations. I hope you do have an opportunity to visit here one day, and in the meantime, I'm just going to go out there and continue to taste the world.